My husband changed every password we had. Email, banking, Netflix, even the grocery delivery app. He thought he was so clever, locking me out of my own life one login at a time. What Marcus didn't know was that I still had access to something far more valuable, our home security system. And what I saw through those cameras destroyed me. Then it made me dangerous. Let me tell you how a woman, who trusted too much, became the architect of her own revenge. My name is Sienna Hayes, and for 8 years I believed I had built something solid. Marcus and I met in college. He was the charismatic business major with big dreams, and I was the quiet accounting student who somehow caught his eye. He made me feel seen in a way no one else ever had. We married young, 23, and full of hope. I supported him through business school, working 60-hour weeks at a CPA firm while he studied. When he finally launched his tech startup, I became the CFO without hesitation. I managed every dollar, filed every tax form, balanced every ledger. Marcus handled the vision and the clients. I handled everything else. "You're my rock, babe," he'd tell me, kissing my forehead. "I couldn't do any of this without you." I believed him. We lived in a beautiful craftsman house in Portland's Laurelhurst neighborhood, my dream home, purchased with my inheritance from my grandmother. 3 bedrooms, a garden I tended every weekend, a kitchen where I hosted dinner parties for Marcus's business associates. I had put my name on the deed, but Marcus always said, "What's yours is ours, right?" Right. His mother, Patricia Hayes, visited every Sunday without fail. She was a real estate agent, always impeccably dressed, always with an opinion about how I should run my household. "Sienna, dear, this roast is a bit dry." "Sienna, shouldn't you be thinking about giving Marcus children soon?" "Sienna, maybe you should lose a few pounds. Marcus works so hard on his appearance." I smiled through it all. That's what good wives do, isn't it? They keep the peace. Then there was Vanessa Cole, my best friend since high school. We'd been inseparable for 15 years, shared apartments in college, traveled to Europe together, been each other's maid of honor. She was a marketing consultant who worked from home, always available for coffee dates and girls' nights. She called me at least once a day. "You're so lucky to have Marcus," she'd tell me. "He's one of the good ones." I thought so too. But looking back now, I can see the red flags I ignored. The way Marcus started working late 3 nights a week, always on client calls. How he suddenly password protected his phone after years of leaving it unlocked on the counter. The way Vanessa started asking detailed questions about our finances. How much did Marcus's company raise in funding? "What's your house worth now?" Disguised as friendly curiosity. I ignored the lipstick stain on his collar that wasn't my shade. Probably from that client lunch, I told myself. I ignored the expensive jewelry charge on our credit card that I never received. He must be planning a surprise, I rationalized. I ignored the way he stopped touching me, stopped seeing me, stopped caring whether I was in the room or not. "You're paranoid, Sienna," he'd say when I asked about his late nights. "You're letting your anxiety get the best of you again. Maybe you should talk to your therapist about increasing your medication." So I doubted myself. I swallowed my suspicions. I played the perfect wife. It started 3 months ago with something small, a declined credit card at the grocery store. I stood at the register, my card full of food for one of Patricia's Sunday dinners, watching the cashier swipe my card again and again. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but this card has been declined. Do you have another form of payment?" My face burned with embarrassment as the line behind me grew longer. I paid with a different card and drove home in confusion. That account had $12,000 in it last time I checked. I was the one who managed our finances. How could it be overdrawn? When I tried to log into our bank account that evening, my password didn't work. "Invalid credentials." I tried again. Same message. I tried our investment account. Locked out. Our mortgage portal. Locked out. Even our shared Amazon account rejected my login. "Marcus." I called from my office. "Did you change our passwords?" He appeared in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Oh yeah. Security upgrade. I read an article about identity theft. I'll send you the new passwords later." He never did. Over the next week, I discovered I'd been systematically locked out of everything. Our email accounts. Our utilities. The security system app on my phone suddenly required new credentials I didn't have. Even the Netflix account I'd been paying for since before we were married. Marcus, I need those passwords, I said one evening as he scrolled through his phone at dinner. I'll get to it, Sienna. God, you're so impatient lately. Everything has to be right now with you. But he didn't get to it. Days turned into weeks. I started using my personal accounts for everything, feeling increasingly disconnected from my own life. The joint checking account I couldn't access. The credit cards I couldn't monitor. The retirement accounts I'd built for both of us. Then came the morning I tried to log into my work computer and found my access to the company's financial systems had been revoked. I called Marcus immediately. Why don't I have access to the business accounts anymore? His voice was casual, almost bored. Oh, our IT guy said we needed to update security protocols. He's working on getting you new credentials. Should be done by next week. It wasn't done next week. Or the week after. Babe, I'm the CFO, I reminded him. I can't do my job without access to the financial systems. Actually, Sienna, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. He set down his coffee mug, his expression carefully neutral. The company is growing fast. We need someone with more experience, someone who can scale with us. I think it's time we brought in an outside CFO. The words hit me like a physical blow. You're firing me? Not firing. Transitioning. You'll stay on as a consultant, part-time, still getting paid. But let's be honest, you've seemed stressed lately. Maybe some time off would be good for you. Focus on the house, on yourself. Maybe finally start that family we've been talking about. I stared at him, this man I'd built a life with, and saw a stranger. When were you planning to tell me this? I'm telling you now. He kissed my cheek and grabbed his keys. Don't overthink it, Sienna. It's for the best. For both of us. That afternoon, I sat in my home office, my grandmother's antique desk, the room where I'd worked countless late nights building Marcus's dream, and felt the first real stirring of suspicion. Something was very, very wrong. I tried to calm myself. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe. My phone buzzed. A text from our mortgage company. Your payment of $3,847 is now 30 days past due. Please remit immediately to avoid late fees. My hands shook as I read it. I had set up automatic payments years ago. That mortgage was never late. I tried to log into the mortgage portal. Password didn't work. I called the mortgage company directly. This is Sienna Hayes. I need to check on my account. One moment, Mrs. Hayes. A pause. I see here that automatic payments were canceled 4 months ago. Your account is now 60 days past due. If we don't receive payment within 30 days, we'll begin foreclosure proceedings. That's impossible. I never canceled. According to our records, the account holder Marcus Hayes called to cancel automatic payments and change the primary contact information. All statements are now being sent to a different email address. I hung up and stared at the wall. Marcus had locked me out of everything. Changed the passwords. Removed my access to our business. Stopped paying our mortgage. And he'd done it all quietly, systematically, while smiling at me across the breakfast table every morning. This wasn't stress. This wasn't security upgrades. This was planning. My phone rang. Vanessa. Hey girl. Coffee tomorrow. I miss your face. Sure, I said automatically, my mind elsewhere. Same place. Perfect. Love you. As I hung up, I glanced at my laptop, at the icon for our home security system. Marcus had locked me out of the app, but I'd been the one who originally set up the system 3 years ago. I created a backup admin account, one only I knew about, just in case I ever forgot my main password. I'd completely forgotten about it until now. My cursor hovered over the icon. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. My heart pounded as I logged into the backup account. The screen loaded slowly, and then, there it was. Live feeds from every camera in our house. Kitchen, living room, front door, bedroom, home office. And in the home office, the room where I sat right now, Marcus stood with his phone pressed to his ear, his back to the camera. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could read his body language. Relaxed, almost gleeful. He gestured with his free hand, laughing at something the person on the other end said. Then he turned slightly, and I saw his face in profile. That expression. That smile. I hadn't seen him look that happy in months. Not when he looked at me, anyway. I clicked to the recorded footage option, selecting earlier that day when I'd been out grocery shopping. The video played. Marcus in the kitchen with Vanessa, my husband and my best friend, sitting at my grandmother's table, drinking my coffee, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. And then they kissed. Not a friendly peck. A deep, passionate, hungry kiss of two people who'd been doing this for a long time. When they finally pulled apart, Vanessa's voice carried clearly through the audio. "When are you finally going to tell her?" "Soon." Marcus's voice was cold, businesslike. "I'm almost done liquidating the accounts. Another 2 weeks, and everything will be transferred. Then I'll file for divorce, and by the time she figures out what happened, we'll be long gone. And the house! Already in the process of transferring the deed to my mother's name. Sienna signed the papers last month. She thought they were refinancing documents. She never reads anything she signs." Vanessa laughed. That laugh I'd heard 1,000 times during girls' nights and heart-to-hearts. God, I almost feel bad for her. She really has no idea. That's what makes this so easy. Marcus leaned back in his chair. She's so trusting, so eager to please. She'll sign anything I put in front of her, believe anything I tell her. By the time she realizes what's happening, we'll have cleaned out everything. The business accounts, the retirement funds, even her precious inheritance money. She'll be left with nothing but debt. What about the company? Already setting up the transfer. Once we move everything offshore, there's nothing she can do. The business will be in shell corporations she can't touch, and she'll be liable for all the outstanding loans I took out in her name. I sat frozen, watching my husband and my best friend plot my destruction in my own kitchen. "She really thinks you love her," Vanessa said, almost admiringly. "After all these years, she still believes it." Marcus shrugged. "I did once. Maybe. But love doesn't pay bills, and her grandmother's money does. Besides, she was getting boring. All she ever talks about is spreadsheets and dinner parties. You're so much more." He pulled Vanessa close again, and I couldn't watch anymore. I closed the laptop. My vision blurred. My chest constricted. For several minutes, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but sit in the chair my grandmother had given me and feel my entire world shatter into pieces. The man I'd loved for 8 years didn't love me. He never had. Or if he did, it had died long ago, replaced by greed and contempt. And my best friend, the woman who'd held me when I cried, who'd celebrated every milestone with me, who I'd trusted with my deepest secrets, she'd been helping him destroy me. Rage came slowly at first, then faster, hotter, sharper. It burned through the shock and the grief, turning everything it touched to ash. They thought I was weak, trusting, easy to manipulate. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I opened my laptop again and started downloading every second of security footage from the past 3 months, saving everything to an encrypted cloud drive. Then I opened a new browser window and began researching divorce attorneys. But not just any divorce attorney. I needed someone who specialized in financial fraud. My phone buzzed at 2 a.m. I'd been awake for hours, watching months of security footage, documenting every kiss, every conversation, every moment of betrayal. The text was from Vanessa. "Can't sleep. Missing you. Coffee in the morning. Face blowing a kiss." I typed back. "Always. 9 a.m. at our spot. Perfect. Where's something cute? I'm taking pics for Insta. Love you. Red heart. Love you." The words made my stomach turn. I set the phone down and returned to my laptop, where frame after frame showed the real Vanessa, the one who mocked me behind my back, who helped my husband steal everything I'd worked for, who planned to leave me with nothing but debt and humiliation. I'd watched 3 months of footage now. Every Tuesday and Thursday when Marcus worked late, he was actually here at home with Vanessa. They'd been using my house, my bed, my kitchen for their affair. And Patricia, Marcus's mother, she knew everything. I'd watched her come over last week, seen the 3 of them celebrate around my dining room table. "To phase 1 complete," Marcus had said, raising a glass of my grandmother's vintage wine. "All accounts drained, all assets transferred, all papers signed. Sienna doesn't suspect a thing." "That's my brilliant boy," Patricia had cooed, kissing his cheek. I told you marrying her was a smart investment. Her grandmother's money set you up perfectly. And now Vanessa gets to enjoy the payoff, Marcus had said, pulling my best friend onto his lap. Babe, you should see the villa I found in Costa Rica. Private beach, no extradition treaty, and completely out of Sienna's reach. They'd laughed. All three of them had laughed while plotting my destruction. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated me. By dawn, I had everything organized. Hundreds of hours of footage, all time-stamped, all clearly showing Marcus and Vanessa together in my home. Audio recordings of their conversations about fraud, asset theft, and their escape plans. Screenshots of bank transfers I'd managed to access through old statements in my file cabinet. I also had something else, something I discovered at 4 a.m. while digging through Marcus's home office after he'd left for his early morning gym session. A burner phone, hidden in his desk drawer, underneath a stack of old business cards. The text told me everything I needed to know. Messages to Vanessa. Sienna signed the life insurance policy change yesterday. $2 million death benefit, and she has no idea I switched the beneficiary to you. Messages to his mother. Found a lawyer who'll help us forge the property deed transfer. Costs extra but worth it. Messages to someone named TK. Need the offshore account set up by next Friday. Wire transfer details attached. They weren't just stealing from me. They were planning something worse. The life insurance change, the constant suggestions that I seemed unstable, Marcus's recent interest in me taking sleeping pills for my anxiety, it all clicked into place with horrifying clarity. If I died, he got everything. And Vanessa would be there to comfort the grieving widow. My hands shook as I photographed every message, every contact, every damning piece of evidence on that burner phone. Then I placed it back exactly where I'd found it. At 8:30 a.m., I stood in my closet choosing an outfit for coffee with Vanessa. I selected a soft pink sweater and jeans, the kind of outfit that made me look harmless, trusting, naive. I did my makeup carefully, making sure to look just tired enough that she'd ask what was wrong. I was going to give the performance of my life. The coffee shop was our usual spot, a trendy place in the Pearl District with exposed brick and overpriced lattes. Vanessa was already there, perfectly styled in athleisure that cost more than most people's rent. She waved when she saw me, her smile bright and completely fake now that I knew the truth. "There's my girl." She hugged me tight. I forced myself not to recoil. "You look exhausted. Everything okay?" "Just stressed about work stuff," I said, sitting across from her. "Marcus has been making some changes at the company, and I'm feeling a little lost, I guess." "Oh, honey." Her hand covered mine, warm and sympathetic. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about being locked out of accounts, about losing access to the company finances, about the mortgage payments I couldn't track. I made myself vulnerable, confused, a little helpless. Everything they expected me to be. "That seems really weird," Vanessa said, her expression concerned but her eyes calculating. "Have you talked to Marcus about it? He says it's just security updates, but—" I let my voice trail off. "Vanessa, can I tell you something? I feel crazy even saying it, but I think Marcus might be hiding something from me." Her face was perfect sympathy. "Like what?" "I don't know. Money stuff, maybe? Or—" I paused, making it look like the words were painful. "Do you think he could be seeing someone else?" Vanessa's laugh was bright and dismissive. "Marcus? No way. That man worships you, Sienna. You're probably just stressed. Maybe you need a vacation, some time away to clear your head. Maybe you're right." I took a sip of my coffee. "I've been thinking about visiting my aunt in Seattle for a few weeks. Get some distance, you know." I watched Vanessa's eyes light up, just for a second, but I caught it. The idea of me gone, out of the way, making their plans easier. "That's a great idea," she said quickly. "When are you thinking of going?" "Maybe next week. I just need to figure out some logistics first." I pulled out my phone. "Actually, could you help me with something? I'm trying to access our security system app, but Marcus changed the password. Do you know anything about password recovery for smart home systems?" Her expression flickered, uncertainty, caution. "Why would I know about that?" "You're so tech-savvy," I said innocently. "I thought maybe you'd have some ideas. It's frustrating being locked out of my own house's security system. Have you asked Marcus for the password? He keeps saying he'll send it to me, but but he never does. I set my phone down. It's like he doesn't want me to have access to it. But that's crazy, right? Why would my husband not want me to see my own security cameras? The silence stretched between us. Vanessa's smile didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. I'm sure it's nothing, she said finally. Marcus is just busy. You know how he gets when he's focused on work. Yeah, I smiled at her. You're probably right. I'm overthinking everything lately. We finished our coffee with small talk, her latest client project, my plans for redecorating the guest room, a new restaurant we should try. All perfectly normal. All completely poisoned by what I knew and what she didn't know I knew. When we hugged goodbye, Vanessa whispered, Everything's going to be okay, babe. I promise. I watched her walk away, her phone already out, no doubt texting Marcus that I was starting to ask questions, that they needed to move faster. Perfect. I wanted them scared. I wanted them making mistakes. I drove home and went straight to my office, locking the door behind me. Then I opened my laptop and composed an email to the law firm I'd researched the night before, Sterling and Associates, specialists in complex divorce and financial fraud. Dear Miss Sterling, I typed, I need to discuss an urgent matter involving marital asset theft, fraud, and conspiracy. I have extensive evidence including video surveillance, financial records, and documented proof of infidelity. I believe my spouse is planning to file for divorce after illegally transferring all marital assets to offshore accounts. I need representation that can act quickly and aggressively. Attached are preliminary documents for your review. I attached a carefully curated selection of evidence, enough to prove my case, not enough to show my full hand. Then I hit send. My phone buzzed. Marcus. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. I checked the security cameras. He was already at the house, but not alone. Vanessa's car was in the driveway, parked in the back where neighbors wouldn't easily see it. I watched them on camera, moving through my home like they owned it. Marcus opened a bottle of wine, my wine from the collection my grandmother had left me. They settled on the couch, and I turned up the volume. She asked about the security system today, Vanessa was saying. She's starting to get suspicious. Doesn't matter. Marcus's voice was dismissive. We're moving up the timeline. I'll file for divorce next Monday. By then, everything will be transferred. The house deed is already in my mother's name. Sienna signed it last week thinking it was a property tax form. The business accounts are empty. Her retirement fund has been liquidated. She'll be left with about $3,000 and a mountain of debt in her name. And she still has no idea. None. I've been slipping sleep aids into her evening tea for months. She thinks she's been sleeping better, but really she's just been unconscious while I handle everything. Half the documents she signed, she doesn't even remember signing. My vision went red. The tea. He'd been drugging me. I grabbed my phone and called my doctor's office. This is Sienna Hayes. I need to schedule a blood test as soon as possible. I need to test for sleeping medications and any other substances that might have been administered without my knowledge. The nurse sounded concerned. Is everything all right, Mrs. Hayes? I'll explain when I come in. How soon can you see me? We have an opening at 2 p.m. today. I'll take it. The blood test would document everything. If Marcus had been drugging me, it would show in my system. More evidence for the case I was building. At 1 p.m., my laptop chimed with an incoming email. Sterling and Associates. The senior partner, Rebecca Sterling, wanted to meet first thing tomorrow morning. This is exactly the kind of case we specialize in, she wrote. Come prepared to discuss protection orders, asset freezes, and criminal charges. What your husband is doing is not just grounds for divorce, it's fraud, and potentially much worse. I saved the email and allowed myself a small, cold smile. Marcus thought he was 10 steps ahead. He had no idea I was already planning his complete annihilation. That evening, I made dinner like always. Chicken piccata, Marcus's favorite, with roasted vegetables and a salad. I set the table with our good china, lit candles, put on soft music. I was the picture of the devoted wife. When Marcus came home at 9 p.m., not late from work but from an evening with Vanessa in our own house while I'd been at the doctor's office, I greeted him with a kiss. You're in a good mood, he said, surprised. I had a revelation today, I told him, serving his plate. You were right. I've been stressed and paranoid. I talked to Vanessa, and she helped me see that I need to relax, trust you more." He relaxed visibly. "That's great, babe. I've been worried about you." "I know. I'm sorry I've been difficult." I poured his wine. "I'm going to do better. In fact, I'm thinking about taking that trip to Seattle to visit my aunt. Give you some space to focus on work. Give myself time to decompress." "That's a great idea." His smile was genuine now, relieved. "When are you thinking?" "Maybe this weekend. Stay for 2 weeks or so." "Perfect." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You deserve a break. You've been working so hard." I smiled back at him, wondering if he could see the rage burning behind my eyes. 2 weeks. Plenty of time for him to transfer the last of our assets, file for divorce, maybe even do something permanent to ensure I never came back to cause problems. He had no idea that by this weekend, he'd be the one with problems. After dinner, Marcus excused himself to his office for a quick call with an investor. I cleaned up the kitchen, humming softly, playing my role perfectly. Then I went to my own office and opened my laptop. The security feed showed Marcus on his burner phone. I couldn't hear clearly, but I could read his lips. "She's planning to leave town this weekend." Perfect timing. He was talking to someone, arranging something. My blood ran cold when I realized he was searching his desk drawer for something, the life insurance policy documents. I watched him photograph the papers and send them to someone. Then he made another call. This time I could hear him clearly through the security system. "Yeah, I need that taken care of before she comes back from Seattle. Make it look like an accident. The life insurance pays out double for accidental death." My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the laptop. He wasn't just planning to steal from me. He was planning to kill me. I stood up, walked calmly to the bathroom, and vomited. Then I sat on the tile floor, my back against the cold wall, and let the full horror wash over me. The man I'd loved, the man I'd built a life with, the man I'd trusted with everything. He wanted me dead. And Vanessa was helping him do it. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually, I heard Marcus's voice from outside the door. "Sienna, you okay in there?" I flushed the toilet, rinsed my mouth, and opened the door. "Just an upset stomach. Must have been something I ate." His concern looked genuine. "Do you need anything?" "Tums. Ginger ale." "No, I'm going to bed. I'll be fine." He kissed my forehead, the tender gesture of a loving husband, and I felt nothing but ice in my veins. I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Marcus breathing beside me. He fell asleep quickly, like a man without a single care or guilty thought. At 3 a.m., when I was certain he was deeply asleep, I got up and went back to my office. I spent the next 4 hours downloading every single piece of evidence I had. Security footage of Marcus and Vanessa, audio recordings of their conversations, photographs of the burner phone messages, bank statements showing the asset transfers, the life insurance policy documents, medical records from that afternoon showing traces of sleeping medication in my blood, medication I'd never been prescribed, and the recording from tonight, Marcus's voice, clear as day, arranging my murder. I uploaded everything to multiple encrypted cloud servers, emailed copies to my lawyer, and saved backups on 3 separate external hard drives that I hid in different locations. Then I composed one final email to Rebecca Sterling. Emergency. He's planning to have me killed. I have proof. Meeting tomorrow is critical. I need protection orders and criminal charges filed immediately. I'm forwarding new evidence that shows conspiracy to commit murder. At 7 a.m., I made coffee and breakfast like always. Marcus came down freshly showered, completely relaxed. "Sleep well?" he asked. "Like a baby," I lied. "Great. So, about that Seattle trip, maybe you should book flights for tomorrow? Get out of here, start your vacation early." He wanted me gone. Today. So he could finalize whatever horrible plan he'd set in motion. "That's a good idea," I agreed. "I'll look at flights this morning." "Perfect." He kissed me goodbye. "I'll be at the office all day. Meetings back to back." The security cameras told a different story. As soon as his car left the driveway, Vanessa's pulled in. I watched them on camera, saw them embrace at my front door, saw them walk through my house discussing which furniture they'd keep and which they'd sell, saw them in my bedroom, celebrating their success. "By this time next week," Marcus said. "She'll be gone. We'll have everything, and we can finally start our real life together." I can't wait, Vanessa said, kissing him. No more sneaking around. No more pretending to be her friend. God, it's been exhausting acting like I care about her boring stories and her pathetic problems. Soon, Marcus promised. Very soon. I saved the footage, grabbed my purse, and drove to Sterling and Associates for my 10 a.m. appointment. The law offices were sleek and modern, all glass and steel. Rebecca Sterling met me in the conference room, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a sharper suit. Mrs. Hayes, she said, shaking my hand. I've reviewed your preliminary evidence. Now show me everything. I spent the next 2 hours walking her through every document, every recording, every piece of evidence I'd collected. Her expression grew darker with each revelation. This is attempted murder, she said finally. Not just fraud, not just theft. Your husband is actively planning to have you killed. I know. We need to involve law enforcement immediately. Today. Will the evidence hold up in court? Absolutely. The security footage alone is damning, but combined with the financial records, the burner phone messages, and that recording from last night, he's going to prison. She leaned forward. The question is, do you want to just survive this, or do you want to destroy him? I met her eyes. I want him to lose everything. The way he planned for me to lose everything. Then here's what we're going to do. Rebecca Sterling laid out a plan that was beautiful in its precision. We'd file for emergency protective orders today, freezing all assets and preventing Marcus from leaving the country. We'd coordinate with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division to investigate the offshore accounts and shell corporations. We'd involve the district attorney's office to file criminal charges, not just fraud, but conspiracy to commit murder. And we'd do it all at once, a coordinated strike that would catch Marcus completely off guard. When? I asked. Tomorrow morning. We'll have everything ready by tonight. The police will arrest him at his office, the FBI will freeze his accounts, and the protective orders will be served simultaneously. By noon tomorrow, your husband will be in custody, and you'll have sole control of all marital assets. What about Vanessa? Rebecca's smile was sharp. She's an accomplice to fraud and potentially to murder conspiracy. She'll be arrested too. And Patricia, his mother. If we can prove she knowingly participated in the fraud, she's going to jail too. We'll let the DA decide on charges. I took a deep breath. Do it. I spent that afternoon making phone calls. To my aunt in Seattle, telling her about a surprise visit I might need to make. To my doctor, requesting copies of the blood test results. To my bank, asking about procedures for reporting fraud. Each call was calculated, each piece falling into place. Marcus texted around 3 p.m. How's your day going, babe? I texted back. Good. Booked my flight to Seattle for tomorrow afternoon. Can't wait to relax. That's my girl. I'll help you pack tonight. He wanted to make sure I left. Perfect. That evening, I played my role flawlessly. I packed a suitcase while Marcus watched, making sure I was really planning to go. I talked about visiting my aunt, about taking long walks, about needing time to find myself again. This is really good for you, Marcus said, helping me fold sweaters. Take all the time you need. Thank you for being so understanding. I stood on my toes to kiss him. I'm lucky to have you. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. That night, Marcus made love to me, or what passed for it. His hands on my body felt like a stranger's. I closed my eyes and thought about tomorrow, about the moment he'd realize everything had fallen apart, about the look on his face when the handcuffs closed around his wrists. Afterward, he fell asleep quickly. I lay awake, watching the ceiling, counting down the hours until dawn. At 6 a.m., I got up and dressed carefully. I wanted to look strong today, unbreakable. I chose a black suit, pulled my hair back, and put on the pearl earrings my grandmother had given me. You're dressed up for traveling, Marcus noted at breakfast. I have a meeting first, I lied. Quick coffee with Vanessa to say goodbye. Tell her I said hi. He smiled, completely at ease. I smiled back. I will. At 9 a.m., I sat in Rebecca Sterling's office and waited. My phone was on the table in front of me, showing the security camera feed from Marcus's office. At 9:15 a.m., Rebecca got the call she'd been waiting for. They're moving in now, she said. I watched the feed. 4 FBI agents entered Marcus's office. I couldn't hear the audio, but I could see Marcus's face change from confusion to shock to panic. They showed him a warrant. He stood up, hands raised, still trying to talk his way out of it. Then the handcuffs. My husband, the man who'd planned to kill me, being led away in handcuffs. Vanessa Cole is being arrested at her apartment, Rebecca said, reading updates on her phone. Patricia Hayes is being brought in for questioning, and the DA is filing charges for fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, forgery, and conspiracy to commit murder. I sat very still, feeling nothing and everything all at once. Mrs. Hayes. Rebecca touched my hand gently. Are you all right? I don't know, I admitted. Ask me later. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Sienna. Vanessa's voice, high and panicked. Sienna, the police are here. They're arresting me. They're saying I helped Marcus commit fraud. You have to tell them it's a mistake. It's not a mistake, I said quietly. I know everything, Vanessa. I've known for weeks. Silence. Then how? The security cameras you thought Marcus had disabled? I had backup access. I watched every moment. I heard every conversation. I have recordings of you and Marcus planning to steal my money and leave me with nothing. I have messages from his burner phone about changing the beneficiary on my life insurance policy. And I have a recording from 2 nights ago where Marcus arranged to have me killed. Sienna, please. You were my best friend. For 15 years. And you helped the man I loved plan my murder. My voice didn't shake. I hope it was worth it. I hung up. Rebecca was watching me with something like respect. How do you feel? Ask me after the trial, I said. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. The media coverage started within hours. Local tech CEO arrested in murder-for-hire plot against wife, read the headlines. Marcus's face was everywhere, being led from his office in handcuffs, his expression shocked and angry and afraid. The details emerged slowly, each one more damning than the last. The offshore accounts he'd set up in the Cayman Islands. The shell corporations used to hide marital assets. The forged documents transferring the house deed to his mother's name. The life insurance policy where he'd changed the beneficiary from me to Vanessa. And most damning of all, the recorded phone call where he discussed hiring someone to stage my death as an accident. Vanessa cracked first. Faced with potential life imprisonment for conspiracy to commit murder, she made a deal with the DA to testify against Marcus in exchange for a reduced sentence. The details she provided filled in the gaps. They'd been having an affair for 2 years. It started innocently, she claimed. Marcus had confided in her about our problems I didn't know existed, and she'd offered a sympathetic ear. One thing led to another. At first, it was just an affair. But then Marcus started talking about my grandmother's inheritance money, about the house, about the business we built together. About how he deserved it all since he was the visionary, and I was just the accountant. He said Sienna was holding him back. Vanessa testified in her deposition. That she was boring and conventional and didn't understand his potential. He wanted a partner who matched his ambition. He said I was that partner. So they plotted. Slowly, methodically, over 18 months. Marcus would gain complete control over all our accounts and assets. He'd lock me out of everything. He'd file for divorce at the perfect moment, after all assets were transferred but before I realized what was happening. And if I fought back, if I proved to be more difficult than expected, well, accidents happen. The life insurance was his idea, Vanessa said. He told me $2 million would set us up perfectly. We could live in Costa Rica, start fresh, be whoever we wanted to be. All we had to do was get rid of the one obstacle in our way. Me. I was the obstacle. Patricia Hayes, Marcus's mother, was charged as an accessory. The evidence showed she'd knowingly participated in the fraud, allowing her name to be used on forged property documents and helping Marcus hide assets. She'd known about the affair. She'd known about the planned murder. And she'd supported it all because, in her words, my son deserves better than a woman who can't even give him children. The irony was that we'd never even tried to have children. Marcus had always said he wasn't ready. Now I knew why. He'd been planning to leave me all along. The trial took 6 months to prepare. During that time, I lived in a different reality. The house, my grandmother's house that Marcus had tried to steal, was returned to my name after the forged deed transfer was invalidated. I walked through those rooms feeling like a ghost, seeing memories everywhere that now felt contaminated. I sold it within a month. Too many ghosts. The business, Marcus's precious tech startup that I'd built from the ground up, was liquidated in bankruptcy. Turned out Marcus had taken out massive loans in the company's name and forged my signature on the documents, making me personally liable. It took months to untangle, but eventually the forensic accountants proved fraud, and the loans were declared void. The company's remaining assets were sold, and I received my portion of the proceeds. About $30,000. For 10 years of work, Marcus's offshore accounts were frozen and eventually seized. The money, my grandmother's money, our savings, was returned to me minus legal fees. All told, I recovered about 70% of what he'd stolen. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I mostly felt exhausted. Vanessa's trial came first. She pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud and accessory to attempted murder in exchange for 8 years in prison. The judge was not sympathetic. You betrayed not just your best friend, but any sense of human decency, Judge Morrison said at sentencing. You participated in a scheme to steal this woman's entire life, and when that wasn't enough, you helped plan her murder. 8 years is generous considering what you deserve. Vanessa cried through the entire hearing. At one point, she looked at me, really looked at me, and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I looked away. Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. Marcus's trial began in November, almost 8 months after his arrest. I attended every day, sitting in the front row behind the prosecutor's table, making sure he saw me. Making sure he knew I was there to watch him fall. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage showing him with Vanessa in our home, discussing the fraud. Financial records proving the systematic theft of marital assets. The burner phone records with messages about the life insurance policy and offshore accounts. Vanessa's testimony detailing every aspect of their plan. And most damning of all, the recording of Marcus arranging my murder. His defense attorney tried to argue entrapment, coercion, misunderstanding. Nothing stuck. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge gave Marcus 25 years for the fraud charges and conspiracy to commit murder. You didn't just steal from your wife, Judge Morrison said. You tried to erase her completely. You wanted her money, her home, her life, and when she inconveniently continued to exist, you planned to end that existence permanently. You are a danger to society and will be treated as such. Marcus looked at me as the bailiffs led him away. His eyes were empty, defeated. All the charm, all the confidence, all the arrogance gone. He looked like exactly what he was, a criminal who'd been caught. I felt nothing watching him leave. Not satisfaction, not relief, not even anger. Just emptiness where love used to be. Patricia Hayes pleaded no contest and received 5 years probation and house arrest for her role in the fraud. She lost her real estate license and her reputation. Last I heard, she'd moved to Arizona to live with her sister, unable to face the shame in Portland. The aftermath was strange. 4 months, I couldn't sleep without nightmares. I'd wake up panicking, convinced Marcus was in the house, that the arrest had been a dream, that I was still trapped in that nightmare. I started therapy twice a week. Dr. Chin was patient with me, helping me untangle the trauma from the rage from the grief. You're mourning, she told me. Not just the relationship, but the person you thought Marcus was. That person never existed, but you're still allowed to grieve for him. So I did. I grieved for the love I thought we shared. I grieved for the future I'd planned. I grieved for my own naivety, for the part of me that had trusted so completely. But mostly, I grieved for the time I'd lost. 8 years I'd spent building a life with a man who was actively planning my destruction. 8 years I could have spent becoming someone, doing something, creating something real. Gone. Wasted. I was 32 years old and starting completely over. I used the recovered money to go back to school, pursuing a master's degree in forensic accounting. If I'd learned anything from this nightmare, it was that I was damn good at following money trails and uncovering fraud. I might as well get paid for it. I made new friends slowly, cautiously. Trust didn't come easy anymore. But eventually, I found people who proved themselves worthy, colleagues from graduate school, women from my therapy group, neighbors who knew my story but didn't define me by it. I never dated. The thought of letting someone that close again made my skin crawl. 2 years after Marcus's conviction, I graduated with my master's degree and took a job with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. I spent my days hunting people like Marcus, smooth talkers who stole from the people who trusted them most. I was good at it. Very good. Each case I solved felt like a small victory. Each criminal I helped convict felt like justice, not just for the victim, but for myself. I moved to Seattle eventually, close to my aunt but independent. I bought a small condo overlooking the water. All mine. Only my name on the deed, no one to share it with or lose it to. Some nights I sat on the balcony watching the sunset and felt something approaching peace. 3 years after the trial, I received a letter. Prison mail from Marcus. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. Dear Sienna, it began. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I hurt you in ways that can never be fixed. I'm writing not to ask for anything, but to tell you something I should have said a long time ago. I'm sorry. I was selfish and cruel, and so focused on what I wanted that I forgot you were a person with feelings and dreams, and a life that mattered. You deserved better. You deserved everything. I hope you found peace. I hope you found happiness. I hope someday you can look back on this and see it as the moment you became stronger, not the moment I broke you. You were always stronger than I gave you credit for. Marcus. I read the letter twice. Then I put it in a folder with all the other court documents, evidence of who I'd been and who I'd become. I didn't respond. He didn't deserve my words, my energy, my time. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. 5 years after everything fell apart, I was sitting in my office at the FBI when my phone rang. The Seattle Police Department. They'd arrested a man running a romance scam, targeting widows and divorcees, stealing their savings after gaining their trust. They needed a forensic accountant to trace the money. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. As I drove to the police station, I thought about the woman I'd been at 30, trusting, naive, blind to the monster sleeping beside her. I thought about the woman I was now at 37, harder, sharper, eyes wide open. I didn't miss who I used to be. That Sienna had been weak, desperate to be loved, willing to ignore her own instincts to keep the peace. This Sienna didn't keep the peace. This Sienna brought war to those who deserved it. I pulled into the parking lot and grabbed my briefcase. Inside were the tools of my trade, laptops, hard drives, forensic software. The same tools I'd used to destroy Marcus were now weapons I wielded for others who couldn't fight back. And every criminal I helped convict, I thought of him. Of them. Of everyone who thought they could betray the people who loved them and walk away unscathed. They learned, eventually, that some women don't just survive betrayal. Some women become hunters. The aftermath was strange. 4 months, I couldn't sleep without nightmares. I'd wake up panicking, convinced Marcus was in the house, that the arrest had been a dream, that I was still trapped in that nightmare. I started therapy twice a week. Dr. Chin was patient with me, helping me untangle the trauma from the rage, from the grief. You're mourning, she told me. Not just the relationship, but the person you thought Marcus was. That person never existed, but you're still allowed to grieve for him. So I did. I grieved for the love I thought we shared. I grieved for the future I'd planned. I grieved for my own naivety, for the part of me that had trusted so completely. But mostly, I grieved for the time I'd lost. 8 years I'd spent building a life with a man who was actively planning my destruction. 8 years I could have spent becoming someone, doing something, creating something real. Gone. Wasted. I was 32 years old and starting completely over. The first year after the trial was the hardest. I moved into a small apartment near downtown Portland, something temporary while I figured out what came next. The space was barely furnished. A bed, a desk, a single chair. I couldn't bring myself to care about decorating or making it feel like home. Home had become a concept I no longer understood. I went through the motions. I woke up. I ate when I remembered to. I attended my therapy sessions. But mostly, I felt hollow, like Marcus had carved out everything essential and left only the shell behind. My family tried to help. My aunt flew down from Seattle and stayed for 2 weeks, cooking meals I barely touched, sitting with me through long silences. My father called every other day, his voice gruff with concern. "You come stay with us in Bend any time you want, sweetheart. You don't have to be alone." But I wanted to be alone. I needed to be alone. I had to figure out who Sienna Hayes was when she wasn't someone's wife, someone's CFO, someone's target. It took 6 months before I could even think about the future without feeling paralyzed. Dr. Chin suggested I make a list, not of goals or plans, but of things I'd wanted to do before Marcus. Before I'd shaped my entire life around his needs and dreams. I sat with a blank notebook for an hour before I wrote the first item: learn to paint. It seemed silly. I'd never been artistic. But in college, before Marcus, I used to wander through art galleries for hours, losing myself in colors and textures, and the way painters could capture emotion on canvas. Marcus had always thought it was boring. Looking at other people's work, he'd scoffed. What's the point? So I'd stopped going. The next day, I bought basic painting supplies from an art store. The young woman behind the counter helped me pick out brushes and acrylics and a beginner's easel. Starting a new hobby, she asked cheerfully. Starting a new life, I replied. She looked at me more carefully then, seeing something in my face. Good for you, she said softly. The best art comes from transformation. I set up the easel in my living room and stared at the blank canvas for 3 hours before making a single mark. When I finally did, it was angry, slashes of red and black, chaotic and violent. I painted until my arms ached, until the canvas was covered in rage and pain and everything I couldn't say out loud. It was ugly. It was honest. It was mine. I painted every evening after that. Some nights the work was dark and turbulent. Other nights, lighter colors emerged. Tentative yellows, soft blues, hints of hope I wasn't ready to acknowledge yet. I never showed anyone the paintings. They weren't for anyone else. They were evidence that I still existed, that I could still create something even after everything had been destroyed. Around this time, I received an unexpected call from Rebecca Sterling. Sienna, I wanted to let you know, we received inquiries from 3 different women. They're in situations similar to yours. Husbands systematically draining accounts, forging documents, planning to disappear with everything. They saw your case in the news and want to know if you'd be willing to talk to them. My first instinct was to say no. I was barely holding myself together. How could I possibly help someone else? But then I thought about those women, about how alone they must feel, how terrifying it must be to discover the person you trusted most was planning your destruction. I remember those first days after I'd seen the security footage, the paralyzing fear and confusion before rage had crystallized into action. Give them my number, I told Rebecca. The first woman who called was named Jennifer Park. She was 38, married for 12 years, with 2 young children. Her voice shook as she explained how her husband had gradually taken control of all their finances, how she'd discovered his affair with her cousin, how she'd found documents showing he was planning to claim she was mentally unstable and take full custody of their kids. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I'm so scared. I know, I said. I was scared too. But fear can become fuel if you let it. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. I spent 2 hours on the phone with Jennifer, walking her through what I'd learned, how to document everything, how to secure evidence, how to protect herself legally and financially. I gave her Rebecca Sterling's contact information and the names of forensic accountants who could trace hidden assets. You're going to get through this, I told her before we hung up. You're going to come out the other side, and you're going to be stronger than you ever imagined possible. How do you know? She asked. Because I did, and if I can, you can. Over the next months, I talked to 7 more women. Each story was different in details but identical in substance. Men who'd pretended to love while actively plotting betrayal, affairs hidden behind business trips and late nights at work, money systematically stolen from joint accounts, children used as leverage or weapons. I became a guide through the nightmare, the voice on the other end of the line saying, "You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. Trust your instincts. Here's what you do next." Helping them helped me. Each woman I guided through the process was proof that something good could come from my catastrophe. Each successful protection order, each asset freeze, each arrest felt like another small victory against the Marcus Hayeses of the world. I used the recovered money to go back to school, pursuing a master's degree in forensic accounting. If I'd learned anything from this nightmare, it was that I was damn good at following money trails and uncovering fraud. I might as well get paid for it. The graduate program at Portland State was intense. I threw myself into the coursework with single-minded focus, grateful for the distraction. Financial statement analysis, fraud examination, litigation support, digital forensics, I absorbed it all. For the first time in years, I felt like I was good at something that mattered, something that was mine. My classmates were younger, fresh out of undergraduate programs, full of idealism about fighting white-collar crime. They didn't know why a 32-year-old woman had suddenly decided to pursue this degree. I didn't volunteer my story. But during a class on asset concealment, when the professor discussed shell corporations and offshore accounts, I found myself speaking up more than I intended. I explained schemes with a level of detail that made the professor pause. "You seem very familiar with these tactics, Miss Hayes," he noted. "I had a good teacher," I replied. "He taught me exactly what to look for." After class, the professor, Dr. William Hunt, a former FBI forensic accountant, asked me to stay behind. "Your ex-husband?" he asked directly. I nodded. "I read about your case. The Hayes fraud and attempted murder. You built the case yourself before bringing in the authorities. I didn't have much choice." "You had every choice. Most people in your situation freeze. They panic. They make mistakes." He studied me carefully. "You didn't. You documented everything, you secured evidence properly, you built an airtight case. That takes remarkable presence of mind under extreme duress." I didn't know what to say. "When you finish this program," Dr. Hunt continued, "I'd like to recommend you for a position with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They need people who understand fraud from both sides, the technical aspects and the human cost. You'd be exceptional at it." The idea planted itself in my mind and grew roots. I made new friends slowly, cautiously. Trust didn't come easy anymore. But eventually, I found people who proved themselves worthy, colleagues from graduate school, women from my therapy group, neighbors who knew my story but didn't define me by it. One of those people was Keiko Tanaka, a fellow graduate student who'd survived her own financial betrayal. Her business partner had embezzled nearly $500,000 from their graphic design firm, bankrupting the company and destroying years of work. We recognized something in each other, a particular kind of wariness, a hard-won wisdom. We started meeting for coffee between classes, conversations that felt safe, because neither of us needed to pretend we were okay. We could just be two women rebuilding from ruins. "Do you ever miss who you were before?" Keiko asked one afternoon. I thought about it. Sometimes. But mostly I realized I didn't really know who I was. I was whoever Marcus needed me to be. Now I'm figuring out who I actually am. "And who's that?" "Still learning," I admitted. "But whoever she is, she's not someone anyone will ever destroy again." I never dated. The thought of letting someone that close again made my skin crawl. Well-meaning friends tried to set me up. "You're young, you're successful. You can't let one bad experience ruin your chances at love," they'd say. But they didn't understand. It wasn't one bad experience. It was 8 years of systematic deception, so complete that I'd questioned my own perception of reality. It was discovering that the person who knew me best in the world had used that knowledge to plot my murder. It was learning that my best friend had laughed at my naivety while sleeping with my husband. That kind of betrayal doesn't leave you afraid of love. It leaves you fundamentally changed in your understanding of what people are capable of. Dr. Chin didn't push. "There's no timeline for healing," she reminded me. "Maybe someday you'll want partnership again. Maybe you won't. Both are valid choices. For now, I chose solitude. And slowly, I learned that solitude wasn't the same as loneliness. 2 years after Marcus's conviction, I graduated with my master's degree and took a position with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, exactly as Dr. Hunt had predicted. The work was intense, demanding, and deeply satisfying. I spent my days hunting people like Marcus, smooth talkers who stole from the people who trusted them most, Ponzi scheme operators, embezzlers, con artists who romanced their way into victims' bank accounts. I was good at it. Very good. Each case I saw felt like a small victory. Each criminal I helped convict felt like justice, not just for the victim, but for myself. My first major case involved a man named Richard Castellano who'd been running a real estate investment scam. He convinced dozens of people, many of them elderly, many of them friends from his church, to invest their retirement savings in property developments that didn't exist. He'd stolen over $8 million, and the evidence was a labyrinth of shell companies and offshore transfers. I untangled it in 3 weeks. How did you trace it so fast? My supervisor asked, impressed. I know how men like Castellano think, I replied. I was married to one. The arrest was satisfying. Watching Castellano's face crumble as agents led him away, seeing the victims get their money back, knowing I'd stopped him from destroying more lives, it felt like purpose. I moved to Seattle eventually, close to my aunt but independent. I bought a small condo overlooking the water, all mine. Only my name on the deed, no one to share it with or lose it to. I decorated it slowly, carefully, choosing every piece of furniture, every painting, every dish with intention. This space was mine. Every decision was mine. No compromises, no accommodations, no shaping my life around someone else's needs. Some nights I sat on the balcony watching the sunset and felt something approaching peace. The condo had floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room with views of Puget Sound. I set up my easel there and painted the water in all its moods, stormy gray, placid blue, sunset gold. The paintings got better. I was never going to be a great artist, but that wasn't the point. The point was creating something beautiful from nothing, proof that destruction wasn't the end of a story. My aunt visited often. Margaret was 72, sharp as ever, and the only family member who never pitied me. She'd been through her own divorce 30 years earlier and understood that sympathy often felt like diminishment. You're thriving, she observed one evening over dinner on my balcony. It's good to see. It took a while. The best transformations do. She squeezed my hand. Your grandmother would be proud of you. Not for surviving, she'd expect that, but for becoming someone worth surviving for. That phrase stayed with me. Someone worth surviving for. 3 years after the trial, I received a letter. Prison mail from Marcus. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. Dear Sienna, it began. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I hurt you in ways that can never be fixed. I'm writing not to ask for anything, but to tell you something I should have said a long time ago. I'm sorry. I was selfish and cruel, and so focused on what I wanted that I forgot you were a person with feelings and dreams and a life that mattered. You deserve better. You deserved everything. I hope you found peace. I hope you found happiness. I hope someday you can look back on this and see it as the moment you became stronger, not the moment I broke you. You were always stronger than I gave you credit for. Marcus. I read the letter twice. Then I put it in a folder with all the other court documents, evidence of who I'd been and who I'd become. I didn't respond. He didn't deserve my words, my energy, my time. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. But I did think about his words. The moment you became stronger, not the moment I broke you. He was wrong about one thing. He hadn't broken me. He tried. He'd come close. But the woman who discovered his betrayal and built a meticulous case against him, who'd survived attempted murder and rebuilt her entire life, who now hunted predators like him for a living, that woman wasn't broken. She was forged. 4 years after everything fell apart, I was invited to speak at a conference on financial fraud. The organizers had read about my case and wanted me to discuss recognizing the warning signs of asset concealment in relationships. I'd never spoken publicly about what happened. The idea terrified me. But I also thought about Jennifer and the other women I'd helped, about how hearing someone else's story might give someone the courage to act. I accepted. The conference was in San Francisco, and the auditorium held about 300 people. Accountants, lawyers, law enforcement, fraud investigators. I stood at the podium, looked out at all those faces, and almost ran. Then I saw a woman in the third row, mid-30s, sitting alone, her expression haunted in a way I recognized. She was here looking for answers, maybe looking for hope. I took a breath and began. My name is Sienna Hayes. 5 years ago, my husband tried to have me killed. Before that, he spent 18 months systematically stealing every asset I owned, forging my signatures, drugging me, and planning to disappear with my best friend and all my money. I'm here to tell you how I survived, how I fought back, and what I learned about the intersection of financial fraud and intimate partner violence. I spoke for 45 minutes. I told my story without crying, without sugarcoating, without making myself smaller to make the audience more comfortable. I showed examples of the documents Marcus had forged. I explained how he'd isolated me from financial information. I discussed the psychological tactics abusers use to maintain control. And I talked about fighting back, about trusting your instincts, about documenting everything, about finding the right professionals to help, about the strength it takes to burn your life down to save yourself. When I finished, the room was silent for 3 long seconds. Then applause, thunderous and sustained. The woman from the 3rd row found me afterward. Her name was Diana. Her hands shook as she handed me her business card. Everything you described, it's happening to me right now. My husband, the locked accounts, the forged signatures. I thought I was going crazy. You're not crazy, I told her. You're being targeted. But now you know, and knowing means you can act. We talked for an hour. I gave her every resource I had. Lawyers, forensic accountants, therapists who specialize in financial abuse. I told her about the security cameras, about documenting everything, about moving quickly once you decide to fight. I don't know if I'm strong enough, she whispered. You are. You walked up to a stranger and asked for help. That took enormous courage. Everything else is just steps. 3 months later, Diana emailed me. She'd gathered evidence, filed for protective orders, frozen her husband's accounts. He'd been arrested attempting to flee the country. She was safe. You saved my life, she wrote. No, I wrote back. You saved your own life. I just showed you where to find the weapons. But her words stayed with me. You saved my life. Maybe Marcus had tried to take mine, but I'd reclaimed it. And now I was helping others reclaim theirs. 5 years after everything fell apart, I was sitting in my office at the FBI when my phone rang. The Seattle Police Department. They'd arrested a man running a romance scam, targeting widows and divorcees, stealing their savings after gaining their trust. They needed a forensic accountant to trace the money. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. As I drove to the police station, I thought about the woman I'd been at 30, trusting, naive, blind to the monster sleeping beside her. I thought about the woman I was now at 37, harder, sharper, eyes wide open. I didn't miss who I used to be. That Sienna had been weak, desperate to be loved, willing to ignore her own instincts to keep the peace. This Sienna didn't keep the peace. This Sienna brought war to those who deserved it. I pulled into the parking lot and grabbed my briefcase. Inside were the tools of my trade. Laptops, hard drives, forensic software. The same tools I'd used to destroy Marcus were now weapons I wielded for others who couldn't fight back. The detective on the case was a woman named Sarah Moreno, mid-40s with tired eyes. She showed me the evidence, dating app messages, wire transfers, fake investment documents. The suspect, James Wright, had stolen nearly $1 million from 11 women over 3 years. Can you trace where the money went? Detective Moreno asked. I smiled. Absolutely. I spent 6 hours in that conference room, following the digital trail of James Wright's theft. Shell companies, cryptocurrency exchanges, offshore accounts, all the same tactics Marcus had used. By evening, I'd mapped every dollar. This is incredible, Detective Moreno said, studying my reports. How did you learn to do this? I had a very good teacher, I replied. He taught me everything I needed to destroy men exactly like him. The arrest happened the next day. I didn't attend. I rarely did anymore, but Detective Moreno called to tell me Wright had broken down during interrogation. He'll plead guilty, she said. The victims will get most of their money back. This is because of you. It's because he was sloppy, I corrected. Men like him always are. They think they're smarter than everyone else. That arrogance is always their downfall. That evening, I returned to my condo and stood on the balcony watching the sun set over the water. The sky was streaked with orange and purple, the water reflecting the colors like liquid fire. Beautiful and temporary, like everything else. I thought about Marcus in prison, about Vanessa serving her sentence, about Patricia living with the shame of what she'd enabled. I thought about the me who'd sat in that kitchen 5 years ago, frozen in shock as she watched her husband plot her murder. That woman was gone. She died the moment she decided to fight back. And from her ashes, someone new had emerged. Someone forged in betrayal and tempered in rage. someone who'd learned that survival isn't about enduring but about transforming. I raised my glass of wine to the sunset, to the woman I'd been and the woman I'd become. Thank you, I whispered. Not to Marcus, but to myself. To the version of me who'd been smart enough to install that backup security account. To the version who'd had the courage to watch those videos. To the version who'd chosen rage over resignation. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for fighting back. Thank you for surviving. My phone buzzed. An email from Jennifer Park, the first woman I'd helped. She'd finalized her divorce, gotten full custody of her kids, and was starting her own business. I couldn't have done any of this without you, she wrote. You showed me that I was stronger than I believed. Thank you for being the warrior I needed to see. I smiled, feeling something warm bloom in my chest. Purpose. Meaning. The knowledge that my catastrophe had been transformed into something that helped others. The sun dropped below the horizon, leaving the sky bruised with twilight. Inside, my condo was warm and bright, filled with my paintings, my choices, my life. I went inside, closed the door, and felt truly safe for the first time in years. The story that Marcus tried to write for me, the one where I disappeared, where I became a footnote in his success, where I quietly vanished, never came to pass. Instead, I wrote my own story, one where the quiet accountant became a hunter, where the betrayed wife became the FBI agent who specialized in hunting betrayers, where the woman who lost everything built something better from nothing. And every criminal I helped convict, I thought of him, of them, of everyone who thought they could betray the people who loved them and walk away unscathed. They learned, eventually, that some women don't just survive betrayal. Some women become the reckoning. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story.